I'd like to say good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Power blinking, wind blowing, and storms coming, and folks, we just hang on. That's all I can say. We do have a storm coming, I guess, this weekend, and kind of pay attention. If it hits the way that they're saying, we probably won't have church Sunday. They're calling for Saturday, Friday, and Saturday mornings to be maybe okay, but they're saying it could dump some heavy snow real quick on a Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. Pretty substantial snow. One place said that they can't say how much, but the last big snow we had was 6 to 10 inches was so long ago, and they said it wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get those amounts again with this storm, but it's too far out for them to go. But anyway, be prepared to have service Sunday, but if it hits the way they said, we may not. So just we'll try to get out that word as quickly as we can so that everybody can be prepared. And Matthew chapter 26 tonight. We've been working our way through Matthew, and we're up to the plot to arrest Jesus, and we went through the signs of the end of time and the other things that he has been teaching about. So we're here at this point. And he says, "And it came to pass when Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said unto his disciples, You know that after 2 days in the feast of the Passover, is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified." You know, he has told them already, not so much in Matthew, it doesn't so, but if you read some of the other Gospels, there's other points that he's, especially in Luke, he talks about going to the Feast of the Passover and how people would stop them and asked him not to go because they knew that they were trying to get him. But he told them in several times in several different places that he would be killed and be offered up. And here is another one that he bluntly just tells them that he will be crucified. And I find it interesting that with all the times that he said that it would happen, that they were so surprised when it happened. And I think that they would probably see that through Jesus' teachings and the things that we have already studied, you can see why he kind of worked them up to the point where they understand that that's probably what's going to happen. You know, when he was standing in front of the crowds, calling them hypocrites, ye hypocrites, and how he did it, what was like 13 times in that one passage in front of the crowds, that they probably understood that they were going to try to get him. So he's telling them here as he was coming together with them and his disciples, and he just bluntly told them again that he would be crucified. It says, "Then assembled together the chief priests and the scribes and the elders of the people unto a palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas." Now, they had a place that was within Jerusalem that was within the temple wall, that was where the high priest would live, and it was in that courtyard that they normally had their meetings. And so when they brought him before Caiaphas, he was the high priest of that time. And there's a little thing that I have here on it that says that he was the high priest from AD 18 to AD 36. So there was several years there that he ruled over the people. Now, understanding these, they were under Roman rule. They ruled, but the Romans also allowed, part of why they spread so much was and kept a lot of the fighting against them down, was they allowed the local people to rule themselves. And so that's what he was somewhat allowed them to do. So they had a little bit of free reign to be able to do certain things. So he allowed the Jewish people to continue a lot of their own rule. Now, of course, they oversaw it and made sure that it went the way they wanted it to. So they had sympathizers that was within their government that helped do this. And Caiaphas and the Sadducees was one of those groups that oversaw and helped run the government. So they gathered at Caiaphas usually at the courtyard, and they consulted that they might take Jesus by subtil and kill him. Now, being where they consulted means that they plotted, and through subtil means through trickery. They wanted to just get a hold of him, and because he was turning the people against them by his public teaching, and they were also afraid that it would cause Rome to see things that was not going the way they wanted to, and Rome may also uprise and take them out of power. So you see two different things going on here. The people was turning against them, and they were afraid that Rome would be turning against them. So they wanted to stop Jesus at all costs from this happening. In other words, they were afraid of losing their power and grip and having power over the people. They were quite wealthy, and they got along very well. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar among the people. Now, in one commentary that I read, it said that this did happen at feast time, when they had the Passover, especially the Passover. There were other feast dates, Feast of the Tabernacles and other such ones that they had, that Rome, especially the Passover, there would be large crowds that would come into Jerusalem. And having the large crowd, of course, Rome would send more soldiers in to make sure that the crowds was in control, or being controlled. The thing about the Passover was there were so many people there that it made it very hard to walk in the streets, that there would be so many people. And this did happen at other times when things would happen and people would be trampled and be killed. So they were afraid that in such an uproar, that when it happened, then the Roman soldiers would step in and try to calm the crowds down. So they were afraid of what would happen in an uproar if they went out among the people and arrested him. Now we switch gears here just a little bit, and this is now when Jesus was in Bethany, which is just outside of Jerusalem in a little ways, in the house of Simon the leper. There came unto him a woman having an alabaster box, a very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. Now, when I was reading this, the thing that got me was, where else in the Bible have we read about the heads of people being anointed? Well, Samuel did it when he anointed David and Saul as king. So, and it was pretty much a custom of that time to anoint the heads of the state, or those that were very important in their society. They would anoint their heads with oil. So it is unclear of what this woman's intent was of anointing Jesus. Most have believed that this was probably Mary, the brother of Lazarus, that would have done this. In some of the commentaries and things that I read, it was believed that this was who it was. Maybe she did it to show her thanks for what has happened to her brother, how he took care of her. But it was something to be done. And she came in, and being an alabaster box meant that it was of great wealth. It was worth a lot of money if they put it in an alabaster box. It would be sealed in there. It's actually some kind of a jar, really. And that's what they used to anoint bodies of also with those that the more important, the richer people would also have those anointments at their death. It says, and there came unto him this woman, okay, but when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, "To what purpose is this waste? For this anointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor." It was also quite customary in the Jewish tradition of taking care of the poor. And especially in the feast times, and this one being their biggest one, their most important feast of the Passover, it was quite often that they would gather up money and be spent and give to the poor as they traveled back home. A lot of different ones took it back and gave it to the poor that probably couldn't even afford to make the trip for the Passover. So seeing this being done and thinking of this as being wasteful, that was also in the back of their mind that this is a time that they helped the poor out. And seeing this done, that's the reason why this comment was probably made, that they could have sold and given to the poor. Now when Jesus understood it, he said unto them, "Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work unto me. For they have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this, that this woman hath done, be told for memorial of her." So Jesus was telling them, don't get all excited about this. Don't trouble yourself with worry, because, hey folks, we can take up and give to the poor, but most of the time the poor is still going to be the poor even after they spend what we give them. Folks, we need to help them as much as we can. But he's saying here that she has done this for a very special... Now, she may not realize that she is doing this in preparing for his death. She would have just done it. This anointment that I read in one place, it said that if it was an alabaster box in this jug, that it would have been very fine stuff. And it may cost as much as a year's salary to have purchased that. That'd been a lot of money to spend on something, and that's the reason why it was only used in very special occasions. It was very expensive. So you can understand these people that was his disciples and those gathered around, a year's worth of salary could have really helped a lot of people, wouldn't it?
He's also reminding the disciples that he's going to die.
Yep.
I was thinking, I'm like, well, how many times did he tell us that he speaks to you, we're still worried about things? You know, we're kind of, that's just our nature, I guess, just doubt.
Yep. Absolutely true. So here this lady has come in and she has poured this upon Jesus. And one of the Gospels said that she dried it with her hair. And how much that would have, meant to Jesus that get that much attention from someone that he cared very much about. And think of how much they was appreciative of what Jesus did and how they showed that respect unto him. But not only that, he turned around and said, wherever this gospel is to be preached, think about this. It's not recorded what Jesus was saying at this time. I'm sure if he was sitting with his disciples, he was teaching them something. Especially he knew his time was growing short, so he would want to be teaching them as much as he could teach them. Tell them as much as they need. Because I'm sure they have a lot of questions they've been asking. None of that is recorded. What she did is recorded. That's how important it was to him, that it be recorded. And I think because of the waste, and to me, this is just what goes into my mind. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priest. Can you imagine Judas? He was the one who was in charge of the money. Now, I don't know why Matthew wasn't in charge. Matthew was the one that was the tax collector. Matthew would have been the one that knew about money. He was the one that knew how to count, but they put Judas in charge of the money purse. Maybe Matthew said, don't give it to me. I'm already being accused of all this bad stuff. Don't give me the money. I don't know. It's not recorded. But here we have Judas that was in charge of the money, and when he saw the waste, in my mind, when he saw the waste, it was probably more than he could handle. So it says right after that, the next thing to have, Judas went out looking for the chief priest. And why did he go out to the chief priest? And he said unto them, what will ye give me? And I will deliver him unto you. What will you pay me if I betray my friend, the one he's been following around, and I'll give you to him. I'll take you to him. And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. Now, 30 pieces of silver means something to the Jewish people. May not mean much to us, but we know that that's what it paid. But 30 pieces of silver was what was considered appropriate to give to someone if you killed someone's slave. It was the payment to pay for a slave. Sometimes it was if you killed one, sometimes they purchased one for 30 pieces of silver. Oh, yeah. 30 pieces of silver, you could buy a slave or kill a slave, and it's the same price they paid for Jesus. And from that time, he sought opportunity to betray him. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? Now the Passover, of course, was and I've heard debate of what the Passover is. There's a couple of different things, and really it all happened pretty much at the same time. We remember when they had to kill the lamb and put it over the lintel and the post of the door so that the death angel would pass over when they were in Egypt. That is one of the things that they did to do that in remembrance. Some thought it was for the Passover when Moses divided the waters of the Red Sea and they passed over on dry land. All that happened within just a couple of days of each other. So it was a celebration of how they come up out of the land of Egypt, and they did it to remember that, and they did certain things like eat the feast of the unleavened bread, because when you fix unleavened bread, you didn't put yeast in it, because when they had to leave, they had to pack quickly, and they prepared unleavened bread for them to eat on their way. So that was one of the part of the feast that they did. So so they're asking Jesus, where are we going to celebrate this? And he said, go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, the master saith, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thine house with my disciples. And the disciples went as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the evening was come, he sat down with the 12. Now this feast of the Passover, there were certain tradition things that they did. And you can see that Jesus used the same traditions that they did, but he changed it just a little bit. And changed the sayings of the things. They had certain things that they said when they did it. They would usually gather around a table, and their tables were not as the tables that we have. A lot of times they would just have a small round place that sat on the ground, raised very slightly. They usually sat on the floor, or they lounged up against what we would probably call a pillow, but they called it a couch. But it was more of a pillow, a large pillow that they would lean up against, and they would even, sit around and they would share the food out of the center. A lot of us, we have plates and forks, but a lot of times they just dipped their bread in whatever they was eating and ate it with their hands. But when they was doing this, and we can see this as Jesus used part of this here. And he says, as they did eat, he said, verily I say unto you, that one of ye shall betray me. And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and began every one of them saying unto him, Lord, is it I? And he answered and said, He that dippeth his hands with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. Now, it was tradition that whoever the host of the party would be the first to dip into the food. They would have a cup that usually they dipped something in, and then they would share the cup. Tradition had it they would use up to 4 cups, and each of the 4 cups meant something different. Now, I don't know what all that is. But Patsy and I think Patsy was with me. We went up one time at Fairview, and they had a Jewish man come in up there, and he sat down and talked about the feast of the Passover. And he talked about all 4 of the cups, what each one of them meant. They're symbolic. They mean different things. The bread, how they would break the bread. It would be up to the head of the house. Usually they blessed the cup, and then they would dip in it and pass it around. They would also take the bread, and they would break it, and there was a blessing that they did upon the bread, and they would pass it around. Very, very interesting. And actually, you can pull up YouTube videos and watch that. Very interesting how they do that. So there was a thing, and Jesus was saying, though, whoever dips with me, meaning somebody is going to dip either before him or with him, and that was going to be the one that betrays him. Because it was very disrespectful to go ahead of or with the head of the household that was doing the. So he's saying that this person is going to dip with me in the cup. Very disrespectful. Then the Son of Man goeth as it is written of him. But woe unto that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. For it had been good for that man if he had not been born. That was another thing that was said quite often. When somebody betrayed somebody or something bad happened to someone, it was quite often that they said it'd be better that they hadn't been. Where else we hear that in the Bible? In the Old Testament, who was it that said, woe is unto me, it had been better if I had not been born? Job said that. So it was pretty common for people to say such things when they meant it was very distressful for a person to do something. So here it is, he said it would have been better if this man, then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? And he said unto him, Thou hast said. Thou hast said. He knew it was him. He knew who it was. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to his disciples. That was customary for the feast of the Passover, that they would say so. And there was a special blessing. And my book here has it. I think Larry has the same Bible that I have. But it says that this is tradition for them to say, this is the bread of affliction which our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. That's traditionally what they would say when they broke it. But Jesus changed it, didn't he? He said, take, eat, this is my body. Now, when they were saying the blessing upon the bread, that this is the bread of affliction that our Father, they didn't mean this is the literal bread, because this had been several hundred years. It would have been very stale and not very good by that point, would it? They were doing it in recognition that this is what their forefathers did, so they could do it in remembrance, but also to make them feel as they were part of it as well. So when Jesus is saying, take, eat, this is my body, he doesn't mean it's my literal body. We're doing it in remembrance of him. And he took the cup and he gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, drink ye all of it. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sin. There was also a blessing that was given when they drank the cup. I don't have it here, but all of it is very symbolic. But Jesus changed the wording to make a new covenant with his people. So when he's telling us to take the bread and take the juice that we use and say, do it in remembrance of him, that is what we're doing, is remembering what he did here in this passage and in the next few days that he's going to do for us. Remission of sin. It is done for the forgiveness of our sin. We do that in remembrance. We take communion, we call it communion, because it is help us to commune with God and what Jesus did at the cross for us. We do that in remembrance of him and what he did on the cross paid for our sins, the remission of our sins. He says, for I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this juice of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Again, that would have meant something to them. A lot of people would take vows at these dinners, and there was 4 cups that was passed around. They would share the first 3. The fourth, if they took a vow that they was not going to do something for so long, it's usually a fast, or it was a promise to do something that was very seriously taken. They would not drink of the 4th cup that was passed around. So that's what he's saying here. He will not drink of the cup henceforth until the day when he would drink it anew with them, his disciples, in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung a hymn, what did they sing? Psalms. There's certain ones, I think it's Psalms 114 through about 118 or somewhere right around in there, that was certain songs that was sung for certain matters. And this is one of those times that they would sing those psalms or those hymns, and they went out into the Mount of Olives. Now, we're going to end there for tonight. When they go out into the Mount of Olives and certain things happen, read and study what is done there. One of the most famous parts of the Bible is coming up of Peter's denial, and or of his saying that he will deny him, and it's all leading up to seeing how his disciples, even though he told them of all the things that's going to happen, how they act when it finally did. So does anyone have anything else tonight?